destructive deep dive podcast show. Let's dive in.
You know how sometimes a news story breaks and you just sense there's a lot more going on beneath the surface?
Yeah, definitely. More layers to peel back.
That feels like where we are today. We're going to dive into the recent and frankly tragic death of Lesbia Mileth Ramirez-Guerra in Maryland.
It's a case that really touches on several sensitive areas all at once: crime, immigration.
Yeah, and the responses of public officials. Yeah,
Right.
It's quite tangled.
Mm-hmm.
So at the core, we have the alleged murder of Lesbia Mileth Ramirez-Guerra. She was a mother, had 2 young children.
And a Guatemalan man, Keycy Robinson Alexi Barrera-Rosa, he's been charged with her murder.
We understand from the reports she was reported missing, end of March? March 31st?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then her body was tragically found, buried around mid-April, April 17th.
Just awful. And it doesn't stop there, legally speaking.
No, Barrera-Rosa's uncle, Rolvin Barrera, he's also been charged as an accessory.
Right, an accessory. We'll get into what that likely means. But this whole situation, it's not happening in a vacuum, is it?
Not at all. It lands right in the middle of ongoing, pretty active discussions about immigration, specifically there in Maryland.
We've seen Senator Chris Van Hollen, for instance, recently defending another undocumented immigrant, Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Yes, he publicly called him a Maryland man. That phrasing got some attention.
It did, and that prior context, it really sets the stage for how people might be looking at the reactions, or lack thereof, to this more recent tragedy.
Exactly. It influences the narrative.
So our goal here, our sort of mission for this deep dive, is to really get to grips with the known facts surrounding this specific case.
And try to understand how it connects, or how it's being connected, to that wider political conversation about immigration in Maryland.
Yeah. We're basing this on a news article primarily from townhall.com, which itself is reporting on local news sources and official statements.
Okay.
All right, so let's unpack the details, starting with the crime itself and the accused, Mr. Barrera-Rosa.
Okay, so the main charge against Keycy Robinson Alexi Barrera-Rosa is, of course, murder. The murder of Lesbia Mileth Ramirez-Guerra.
And the reports mention where her body was found.
Yes, in a wooded area. It was near Cedarville State Forest, which is in Prince George's County.
And before her body was found, Barrera-Rosa was actually arrested, wasn't he, by ICE?
That's a key point in the timeline. He was arrested by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, on April 5th. This was in La Plata, Maryland.
So federal immigration authorities were already involved before the discovery of the body.
It seems so. And ICE has explicitly stated that Barrera-Rosa is a citizen of Guatemala and that he entered the U.S. without authorization.
And this wasn't his first run-in with immigration authorities based on the article?
Apparently not. The report we're looking at indicates both Barrera-Rosa and his uncle Rolvin were apprehended previously.
When was that?
Back in April 2019, near El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
And at that time, they were reportedly issued notices to appear before an immigration judge.
So there's a history there. They were already sort of in the system, you could say.
It suggests an existing immigration case or process was likely underway, or should have been.
And there's another detail. Something about documents found.
Yes, investigators apparently found fake federal documents belonging to Barrera-Rosa. They were found at Mrs. Guerra's home during the investigation.
Wow, okay, fake documents. That certainly adds another layer of complexity.
It does. Raises questions about, his status and activities.
Now let's talk about the uncle, Rolvin Eduardo Barrera. What's his situation?
He's been charged as an accessory to murder.
Accessory. What does that typically imply? The article doesn't spell out his exact actions.
No, it doesn't detail his alleged role. But an accessory charge usually means someone is accused of helping the principal offender after the crime was committed. Maybe helping to conceal it or helping them avoid arrest, something along those lines.
I see. And like his nephew, he's also drawn attention from IC.
Yes. IC placed an immigration detainer on him after his arrest by local authorities.
Okay, can you just quickly explain what a detainer is for anyone unfamiliar?
Sure. It's basically a request from ICE to the local jail or law enforcement agency that's holding someone.
Right.
It asks them to hold the person for a bit longer, typically up to 48 hours beyond when they might otherwise be released.
Like if they posted bail on the local charger.
Exactly. It gives ICC time to take custody of the person for immigration enforcement purposes.
Got it. So the immigration status of both men is clearly a central element here.
Mm-hmm. Undeniably.
Okay, so we've laid out some of the basic facts of the crime and the accused. Now, let's pivot to Senator Van Hollen. As we mentioned, his prior advocacy for Kilmar Abrego Garcia is part of the backdrop here.
Yes, his public support for Mr. Abrego Garcia, calling him that Maryland man, is being contrasted now with his response, or perceived response, to Mrs. Guerra's death.
And the town hall article makes that contrast pretty explicit, doesn't it?
It does. It reports that Senator Van Hollen did eventually issue a statement about the Guerra case to Fox News.
Okay, what did he say?
Well, the statement apparently highlighted that violent crime has actually decreased in Maryland over the last 3 years.
Interesting focus.
And it mentioned ongoing efforts to combat crime generally. He also expressed sympathy for Ms. Guerra's family.
As you'd expect, yes. Condolences are standard.
Of course. But the article we're referencing, it frames this response in a particular way. It suggests maybe the focus on broader stats and also his mention of ensuring due process rights for all.
Meaning for the accused as well.
Right. The article implies this might seem a bit detached from the immediate tragedy and the grief of the victim's family.
So the source is pointing towards perhaps a political calculation or messaging strategy over addressing the specifics head-on. At least that's the interpretation presented.
That seems to be the angle, yes. And it further emphasizes this by noting something about his social media activity.
What was that?
It points out that unlike his apparently frequent posts about Mr. Abrego Garcia on his X account,
Formerly Twitter.
right, X, at the time the article was written, he hadn't posted anything specifically about Mrs. Guerra's death.
Huh. And did it mention any other posts from around that time?
Yeah, it actually highlights that on the same day the statement about Guerra was given to Fox, he did post on X about Mr. Abrego Garcia again. Something about alleged non-compliance by the Trump administration in that case.
Wow. Okay, so that juxtaposition is really what the article is driving at, suggesting maybe differing levels of public engagement or priority.
That's certainly the impression the article conveys.
Now, there was one other detail mentioned about the location, Charles County, where Barrera-Rosa was arrested by ICE.
Yes, the article states that Charles County is reportedly considered a sanctuary location for illegal immigrants.
Okay, now sanctuary can mean different things. How is it likely being used here? We need to be careful not to get into the debate itself, just report what the term implies in this context.
Generally, when a place is called a sanctuary jurisdiction, it means local authorities have policies that limit how much they cooperate with federal immigration enforcement, like ICE.
So maybe not honoring all ICE detainer requests fully, or not inquiring about immigration status during routine stops, things like that.
Exactly. Those kinds of policies. The article includes this detail, seemingly as relevant background to where the arrest took place.
Right, just part of the factual landscape presented in the source.
Mm-hmm.
So as we pull these threads together, the crime, the immigration status, the political commentary, the sanctuary designation, it really does raise some bigger questions, doesn't it, for you, the listener, to think about?
It really does. Like, how do these different layers of policy actually work together? Or maybe clash, local sanctuary policies versus federal immigration enforcement.
Yeah, how does that play out on the ground? And it also makes you think about public officials. How do they, or how should they, navigate these incredibly sensitive situations?
It's a tough balancing act, isn't it? Addressing a specific, horrific crime like this one, while also maybe wanting to talk about broader trends or policies.
Where do you put the emphasis, especially when dealing with the immediate grief of a victim's family?
And then there's the whole concept of due process. What does that really mean, practically speaking, in a case like this, where the accused isn't a citizen and you have this terrible loss on the other side?
These are definitely not easy questions. There are no simple answers, and a case like this just throws all that complexity right into the spotlight.
Yeah, it forces you to confront the different perspectives and, honestly, the different values that are often competing when we talk about immigration, crime, and safety.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap what we've covered in this deep dive. We looked at the basic facts. Keycy Robinson Alexi Barrera-Rosa charged with murdering Lesbia Mileth Ramirez Guerra.
His uncle, Rolvin Eduardo Barrera, charged as an accessory. Both men identified as Guatemalan nationals who entered the U.S. without authorization, with prior ICE contact noted.
We also looked at the context surrounding Senator Van Hollen's response, particularly as contrasted in the news report with his previous advocacy for another individual.
Right, highlighting his statement focusing on crime stats and due process, and the article's critique regarding his public communications and priorities.
And finally, we noted the reported detail about Charles County being a sanctuary location, adding that local policy dimension.
Our aim here, just to reiterate, was really to lay out the information as presented in the source material, to give you a clearer picture of the different elements involved.
Because it's a tragic situation that really highlights the human cost, the very real human impact at the intersection of these big, often abstract issues like immigration policy and public safety statistics.
Absolutely.
And maybe that leaves us with a final question for you to ponder. When a community is faced with a tragedy like this, one that weaves together immigration status, violent crime, and questions about political responses and local policies, what does it actually mean for that community, for all of us really, to grapple with it?
How do we weigh all the different facets, the intense personal loss, the legal processes, the policy debates, the media narratives?
Yeah, how do we hold all those things at once and try to make sense of it? Definitely something worth thinking more about.
In the heart of this nation, under skies so blue, there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true. From the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty